This is wide receiver Jeremy Curley of the New York Jets, and you're listening to the Shorts Sports Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Short Sports Show. I am your host, Daniel Short. Today is Monday, November 9th, 2015. And we're going to get through the show together. As most of you guys know, I'm a TCU fan. And this Saturday was probably the worst Saturday I've ever had since, I think y'all know. But anyways, we're gonna get through the show together. I'm not gonna talk too much about it other than a normal recap. That would be about any other game, and we're just gonna get through it together, guys. Before we start the show, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @short_sports 24/7. And if you're brand new to the show, welcome. Thank you for clicking on. Promise you will not regret it. We're gonna have a little bit of fun here today. I was actually about to do this show tomorrow morning because there wasn't a whole lot of news right now with the NFL other than some basic stuff, and with college football. I was going to wait another day, but I thought it'd be better now just to get it done and maybe do a show Wednesday morning, just doing a real quick, very, very quick, probably like a 5-minute, maybe 10-minute at most, talking about the rankings, because as we all know, they all come out on the rankings that matter right now. They all come out on Tuesday night with the college football playoff on ESPN. So the AP poll obviously came out, changed a couple things. I don't really care anymore about it just because we don't go through it. We don't go by it anymore. So there's that. But again, we're going to recap some college football games. We're going to talk about some special news, and then move on to the NFL, talk about that as same thing, and have some fun today, guys. I'm trying to stay positive here. I'm trying to stay absolutely positive as much as possible. So here we go. First news, Notre Dame running back C.J. Prosise is going through concussion protocol after leaving Saturday's game at Pitt. Head coach Brian Kelly said Sunday. Prosise, the team's leading rusher, left in the first quarter after number 5 Fighting Irish won 42-30 win over the Panthers. He had 5 carries for 28 yards. Now, obviously, he's been a crazy story this year just on him, and so hopefully he can, speedy recovery so he can get back on the field. He's a redshirt junior that spent most of his college career at safety and at wide receiver. Then this spring, he switched over at running back. Couple of injuries, couple of new guys. They needed, more depth. Put him out there. He shoots way up to the depth chart at week 2 and now leads the team with carries and yards. He has 148 carries, 975 yards, 11 touchdowns, in addition to 23 catches and 262 yards receiving-wise and 1 receiving touchdown. Has done a great job for his Notre Dame offense, especially after losing their starting quarterback and having Kaiser step in, having some kind of rhythm on offense to help him out. He's done a great job, but Notre Dame still got a good backup in case Prosise can't go next week. Freshman Josh Adams, he stepped up, rushing 20 times for 147 yards. Also caught a 5-yard touchdown pass. Not bad. Not bad when you got to step in. Obviously, Prosise is a huge loss for them, but if he can get through and Adams can run the ball, man, Notre Dame is looking scary. You got Will Fuller, one of the best receivers right now in college football. Kaiser is doing a great job. Offensive line doing a good job. Defense holding it down. And then you got a running game. I mean, Notre Dame's looking good right now. Of course, we couldn't go through college football this week without having some referee, screw up. We had to have something. Something had to happen. Didn't matter which game, which conference. It had to happen, and it actually happened twice with 2 different conferences this week. Both the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. The Pac-12 screwed up. Big Ten saying, hey, we didn't screw up. But always have to have controversy here. The Pac-12 has suspended a line judge responsible for ruling an inadvertent whistle that gave Washington State an extra down in the Cougars' 38-24 win against Arizona State on Saturday. With Arizona State leading 14-3 late in the second quarter, Washington State completed a pass on 4th and 5, but forward progress appeared to be stopped well short of the first down, and a whistle blew. The play briefly continued, at which point the line judge determined the whistle was blown inadvertently. By rule, Washington State was allowed to replay the down and scored a touchdown later on that drive. It was on that play. It was Luke Falk's 11-yard touchdown pass to Don Williams. The following play, it's the fifth down. The fifth down returns. The line judge will be suspended for 1 week, and the entire officiating crew has been downgraded, according to the conference. It is the first suspension for the Pac-12 official this season. So, did that, help Washington State win? Kind of, sort of. But, there's no guarantee. Arizona State couldn't have stopped them again or whatever. You never know, but yeah, it does kind of suck when referees have to get in the way of this. And then in the Big Ten, they had a confirmed saying, hey, the officials ruled the Nebraska game-winning touchdown against Michigan State on Saturday, saying it was good, it was fine, nothing was wrong with it. This is what happened. Cornhuskers wide receiver Brandon Riley went out of bounds before the 30-yard touchdown pass from Tommy Armstrong with 17 seconds left in the fourth quarter. On-field officials ruled Riley's catch was legal because Michigan State cornerback Jermaine Edmondson had forced him out of bounds. The play had been reviewed on replay to determine whether Riley and Edmondson made contact and whether Riley reestablished himself inside the field of play and completed the catch. They said it was all good. Replay was fine. Referees called it right. So Michigan State didn't get screwed out of this, but now Michigan State sees how losing on the somewhat last seconds feels like. It came back. Just like when TCU let the lead blow to Baylor, it came back to them in the bowl game against Michigan State. Michigan had a screw-up. Last seconds, y'all scored, y'all won. It happened right back to y'all with Nebraska now. Granted, it wasn't as bad as, Michigan's loss, but still, it all comes back. But, it's crazy, starting with last week when we had that crazy thing with Miami and officials. It's been a bad year for officials. It seems like there's been more screw-up calls or more calls that maybe shouldn't have happened or should have happened this year than any other year. I don't know. It's crazy. A developing story that's going on right now is the Missouri Tigers player. First, a Missouri Tigers player said Sunday night that the entire team is not united over the decision to stop practicing until graduate student Jonathan Butler ends his hunger strike. Quote, as much as we want to say everyone is united, half the team and coaches, black and white, are pissed. The player, who wished to remain anonymous, told ESPN, quote, if we're 9-0, this wouldn't be happening. Butler began a hunger strike last Monday, saying University of Missouri President Tom Wolf should step down after failing to respond to student concerns about racial tension in the wake of several on-campus incidents. Talking about recruiting. On Sunday, head coach Gary Pinkel and athletic director Mark Rhodes issued a statement that Missouri did not practice Sunday and indicated, quote, it was clear the Tigers do not plan to return to practice until Jonathan resumes eating, end quote. Mondays are regular off days for football, so if you hear anything that they're off, some person trying to get, clicks or whatever, they're already off on Mondays. They don't practice on Mondays. The coaches did tell the players, though, to watch film on their iPads and keep preparing for Saturday's game against BYU in Kansas City, the player said. The player indicated the team had been aware of Butler's hunger strike for several days. However, some black players did not decide to take any action until Butler met with some of those players Saturday night. Quote, not everyone agrees with the decision to stop all football activities. Most people are pissed, including the black guys on the football team, end quote. This sucks that it just, I don't know. I try not to get into it with the racial standpoint of anything, but this is ridiculous to completely stop football activities. I understand you're upset. And granted, yeah, if you're 9-0 right now, this isn't even an issue. You just let this slide majority of the time, especially 9-0, and you got other things on the line. You're probably like, we're not going to stop. You're already having a bad year, so why not take advantage of it? I probably should have done a little bit more looking on it, so that's my fault. But if Jonathan Butler doesn't even play, and he's just a graduate student, which I would highly doubt that he's not a football player, because I'm pretty sure he is. Otherwise, the football team would have done it. But if he's not even a football player, this shouldn't affect football. I understand it's a racial situation. They're trying to figure out what's going on, because apparently there was a report where, someone yelled the N-word during a play. And then someone or a few people, I don't know for sure, smothered feces on the wall in the shape of a swastika. Now, yes, those are, immediate problems for the university to handle. But if Butler's not even a football player, the team shouldn't be doing this. I mean, you got things, you got football to play, and I understand there's other issues that are bigger than football. I completely understand that. But at the same time, I mean, you're going to hurt you could eventually hurt yourself for all of this. And that's not the way to go. There's other ways to handle these situations. Gary Pinkel, I feel like, and athletic director Mark Rhodes should probably look at something, make other statements other than just saying, yeah, we're not gonna practice. So if he continues to go, which I don't know how long he go without eating. But if he goes until Saturday, you're willing to go to play against BYU without any practice other than the film study. You're willing to just go straight in. And what happens if BYU blows your team out? Then your job is now on the line, because you've already had a bad year and had some other suspensions happen. Mark Rhodes' job is on the line. A lot of things go from just bad to really worse if things don't clear up and they take a different approach to this. We'll have to see. But definitely an ongoing story with that, and I'll keep you guys updated. Can't go through any of the rankings just because obviously they're not out yet for the college football playoff rankings. And with TCU already at 8, I'm pretty sure they're probably going to drop us to 25 because, they don't love us like that. Let's go ahead and just real quick. I'm just going to breeze right through it. Guys. TCU. Obviously, we play terrible. Boykin throws 4 interceptions, 1 touchdown. He was 35 of 57, 445 yards. He led the team in rushing with 19 carries, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Sean Nixon went off 9 receptions, 146 yards. Interesting stat about this game. Of the total yards Oklahoma State had, it was like 456 or something like that. Half of them, 200 and something, came off of 4 plays. And each of those were touchdowns. Each of those were the big ones. The James Washington 50-yarder, the 48-yarder from, again, James Washington, the 82-yard pass to Marcel Aitman, and then James Washington again, 74 yards. It's just how it happens. It's just how it happens. When you don't have a defense, our DBs, if you've actually watched TCU football and not just been criticizing them, excuse me, you would have seen that our DBs are the worst in college football history. I mean, they're absolutely garbage. They're very bad. All you got to do is run stop and goes, and if you got enough speed or just average speed, you're going to burn straight through them and catch, 40-something yard, if not take it all the way to a touchdown. And that's exactly what happened. James Washington, a great wide receiver for Oklahoma State, has a ton of speed, runs a few stop and goes, kabam, touchdown. This defense got torched. I mean, obviously Oklahoma State, there's no excuse. This game, we flat out got beat. I'm not as mad with this loss as I was with Baylor because we dominated them for 4 quarters or three quarters and, about 10 minutes. 4 quarters or 3 quarters and 10 minutes into the fourth. So, obviously I was upset with that. But this one, I'm not as upset because we flat out got beat. We couldn't do anything offensively. I knew defensively it was going to be a struggle. And sadly, it looks like we possibly lost wide receiver Josh Doxson, the best in college football, not just as a TCU fan, but you look at the stats, he is the best. And just what he does, how polished he is. He most likely is out for the year, which really, really sucks. We still have Kobe Listenby, who's been playing hurt early in the season. And he looks about 100% now, as he caught a huge pass. It was very questionable play calling into the fourth quarter. TCU actually had a chance to possibly get back in this game, make it a little bit closer. Because you guys remember, the last interception was returned for a touchdown. So you're looking still at a 29-42 ball game right now. And TCU, in the fourth quarter, takes about 7-minute drive to go 90 yards. Usually for TCU, that's a maybe 2-minute drive. They just go like that, but they kept running the ball. The time we don't need to run the ball, they run the ball. Baylor game, that's when you run the ball. But that's because you're winning, and you're trying to milk the clock. When you're down significant points, and the way your defense is played, the way your offense is played so far, you got to score quickly. You're getting a couple stops late in the game. Score quickly. Run your offense. It didn't happen. And then finally, last play, 44 seconds left. Boykin throws a 42-yard pick, or a pick that's returned 42 yards for a touchdown. Final score, 49-29. My thing is, I'm going to point this out real quick, is depending on what Oklahoma State does, Oklahoma State could just, lose the next 2 out of 3. They play next week at Iowa State, and then they're home against Oklahoma or Baylor and Oklahoma. So that got the good part in. They had all 3 of the big teams come to their place. If they could lose those next 2 games, and this game means nothing, to Oklahoma State, they'll drop straight out. Even if they split those games, they're most likely out. My thing is with TCU. Now, I get we played some close games, but one, how does this knock Boykin out of the Heisman race? You saw what RG3 did. He lost multiple games that year, had a few, not so great games. I don't know if he threw 4 picks in a game, but he still wins Heisman. You've got other quarterbacks. Palmer, he lost a game or 2 when he won it. I don't understand how one game knocks Boykin out. I know it was 4 interceptions. It was bad, but if he goes out and wins out the rest, a couple games, that can't knock him out of the Heisman. Fournette didn't do anything Saturday night. And then last thing I'm going to point on is this now apparently knocks TCU out of the playoffs. Losing on the road to a ranked team in Oklahoma State. I'm just going to throw it out there. I know what Alabama did. They just beat LSU. But there's no way at the end of the year, let's say TCU wins out. They beat Oklahoma on the road and they beat Baylor. And TCU has 1 loss. Then you have Alabama go through and they went out. They have 1 loss. This goes back to the Ohio State TCU thing again. Ohio State last year lost at home against a Virginia Tech team that finished 500. That was bad. They make it to the champion, or they're into the playoffs. TCU loses on the road to Baylor, who is also a team trying to fight for a playoff spot. TCU's left out. I feel like that we could have the situation again where we can have Bama win out, 1 loss, to Ole Miss. I don't remember that game was home or away, but either way, you lost to Ole Miss, who just has been bad the rest of the year. Especially, losing to Arkansas now. You lost to Ole Miss, not even ranked, not anymore, and won't finish the year ranked. You lost to them. But if Oklahoma State even splits, obviously if Oklahoma State wins out, they're going to the playoffs. They're undefeated. But you got to think, let's say Oklahoma splits those two games against Oklahoma and Baylor, no matter who they lose to or who they beat. TCU has one loss. Alabama has one loss. Not saying TCU takes Alabama's spot, but you got to make the same argument that TCU should get in, especially if they go out and dominate or just win overall against Oklahoma and Baylor, because other power media places are saying that Oklahoma and Baylor should be in the playoffs. If TCU wins out, shouldn't they get in? Because now you're even talking about Oklahoma State maybe getting in. It won't happen because why? It's TCU. We're not the big power school. They won't do it. If they didn't do it last year with a more complete team, what makes you think they'll do it now? That's my last point. I'm just saying it's kind of ridiculous. But, again, there's still a lot of football. TCU could end up losing those last two games, and it means nothing. We're 9-3 and go to the Alamo Bowl, which I wouldn't be too upset with because the Alamo Bowl, that's in San Antonio. I'm so close to San Antonio. I would love to see my TCU Horned Frogs in San Antonio. Obviously, I would much rather see them in the playoffs and watching at home on TV. But, second scenario, we go to the Alamo Bowl. I'm 100% fine with that because I got to go see them live and maybe even try to get on the field. You never know. I was close last year, so we'll see. All right, let's move on. Vanderbilt almost had it. Vanderbilt almost did it, ladies and gentlemen. They lose to Florida 9-7. You got to think this hurts Florida's chances just a little bit. Obviously, they'll go on to the SEC championship now for the East Division, I believe. Yeah, well, obviously. But you got to think that this might help or West. I have no idea where they put Florida at. But this hurts them a lot. You played Vanderbilt, and you barely won. I don't know. We'll see. Notre Dame dominates Pittsburgh 42-30 on the road, and really those last couple touchdowns for Pittsburgh. Kind of garbage touchdowns. Well, one happened in 4 minutes, and the other one happened with a minute left. Notre Dame really should have won at 42-17. Deshaun Kaiser goes off 19 of 26, 262 yards, 5 touchdowns. And obviously we talked about Adams, 20 carries, 147 yards. Will Fuller, 7 receptions, 152 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just went off for Notre Dame. Penn State couldn't get it done against Northwestern. I was hoping they would, 23-21. Let's see, Christian Hatterberg, 21 of 40, 210 yards, and an interception. Somehow, he's still the number one quarterback to everybody. I don't understand it. He's okay. I think he's not going to stay another year because this offensive line is garbage for Penn State, one of the worst ever. But you got to think, is he really? If you look at Penn State, okay, what if he goes to a team that doesn't have an offensive line? It's not that well. Well, you're going to get the same kind of guy who's not putting a whole lot of points on the board and throwing a few picks. Just saying. Stanford dominates Colorado, even though it was pretty close in the first half. I believe, halftime. Well, it was 28-7 after halftime, but it was 7-7 after the first quarter. But Stanford scores 21 in the second quarter. Final score 42-10. Arkansas, Brett. They did it. I wonder if he really meant to hop on his wife or hop on the plane. I don't know. It's a funny quote. Brent, you did it so well. Oh, breaking news coming in. Illinois just fired their athletic director amid investigation into alleged players' mistreatment. Results to be released later today. It's probably going to happen right after the show, so don't worry. But, yeah, Arkansas gets a victory. They use a crazy lateral play and a 2-point conversion to upset Ole Miss. They play for the win, and they get it. Brandon Allen, 33 of 45, 442 yards, and 6 passing touchdowns. Collins for Arkansas, 17 carries, 108 yards. They just went completely off. Arkansas gets the W on the road at Ole Miss. Awesome. Florida State, turnover friendly right there. They let the ball game slip away to Clemson. Clemson doesn't really dominate. 23 to 13. Deshaun Watson, 28 to 42, 297 yards. He also had over 100 yards rushing. Dalvin Cook, he does his thing. 21 carries, 194 yards, and a touchdown. Sean McGuire just looked off. And, you know, obviously now you question it more since they lost. But you got to think, what would have Everett Golston had done against this defense? Now, there was talks that, you know, he was missing a lot of reads, that he wasn't playing as smart, excuse me, as McGuire was the past couple of weeks. So McGuire goes in 16 of 29, 164 yards, and an interception. Granted, he's playing against a really good defense in Clemson, but you got to think, you almost had a 200-yard rusher against Clemson. Why couldn't you get this passing game going? Again, yes, this is a good defense, but if they're having to bite so much on this running game that they cannot stop, you'd think that would lead to a little bit more success than McGuire had. Now, whether Golston would have made it, who knows? Last play of the game for Florida State, Rudolph, the wide receiver, gets stripped, just yanked. The ball gets yanked straight out of his arms. Clemson recovers, and they get the victory. 23-13, just overall impressive for Clemson. And honestly, now that TCU's most likely out of it, I'm rooting for Clemson to win it all. I really am. I like their team. I like Dabo Swinney. I've never had a thing against Clemson. I've been a fan. And I love teams with a really good defense because, TCU used to have one. They used to actually have a defense. So, when teams like Michigan State a few years ago and now Clemson, I really appreciate that. And especially Deshaun Watson is one of my favorite quarterbacks as well. So I hope Clemson can win it all now. Iowa escapes a loss to Indiana, 35-27. Indiana. Why couldn't you do us all a favor and just get a W when it mattered? You couldn't do it against Ohio State, and now you can't do it against Iowa. It just sucks. Iowa's going to go undefeated, guys. It's incredible. It was just too much. They scored. Indiana scores a touchdown with 2 minutes and 24 seconds left in the game, thinking they could come back. They almost did, but Iowa holds off. They didn't get an interception, which is shocking because I feel like they had a streak going on. But man, Indiana's going undefeated. I believe they got Minnesota next. Minnesota kept it close with Ohio State, but I mean every team does apparently. So I don't know if Minnesota could get it done. Yes, Minnesota. That game is in Iowa, 7 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. We'll talk about that on Friday's show. But man, Minnesota, I need y'all to do something because Purdue's not going to do it. Nebraska might. If they just now beat, whatever. We'll talk about it in just a second. They just beat Michigan State. Hopefully, that means they could beat Iowa. We'll just have to see. Michigan scores 49 points. They actually have an offense now. 49 points. It was against Rutgers. But 49-16 is their final score. Michigan gets the dub. Houston and Cincinnati, a game a lot of people didn't talk about, but a great game it was. Houston improves to 9-0. They should try to get a jump here in the rankings. Greg Ward had somewhat of an off day, but he shows that there's room for improvement here. 16 of 24, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. But he still, he did his thing. The defense for Houston, underrated. They don't talk about them. I believe they have one of the longest streaks in takeaways with multiple takeaways. I mean, it seems like every game they have at least a forced fumble and 2 interceptions. They just do a great job. Gunnar Kill, a victim of that. He did have over 523 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. So Houston improves to 9-0. Cincinnati drops to 5-4. 33-30 is your final score, and Houston gets a dub. UCLA blanks Oregon State 41-0. Oklahoma struggles a little bit in the beginning, then starts pulling away about mid-second quarter. Final score 52-16. Oklahoma beats Iowa State. Nebraska, Michigan State. Tommy Armstrong does his thing. Good job this time. 19 of 33, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I really like this running back. Is it Isaiah Cross? Is that his name? Let's see. Oh, Amani Cross. Amani Cross, the running back for Nebraska. Pretty well. I like to see him get more carries. 18 carries, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Connor Cook, 23 of 37, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Jordan Westerkamp for Nebraska, 9 receptions, 143 yards, and a touchdown. Goes all the way to the final wire when Brandon Riley, as we talked about, 30-yard touchdown pass, or catch, from Tommy Armstrong. They failed the 2-point conversion, but it didn't matter. They got the W, 39-38. Great victory for Nebraska. Navy upsets Memphis, and I don't know if we should really call it an upset. It seems a little bit disrespectful to Navy. Navy coming into this game, I believe they were 6-1. Memphis was, 8-0. Navy showed that they have Keenan Reynolds, who's just the best quarterback that's not talked about running the triple option. He's just great. Even though they're on the road, you got to think Navy's got a shot here. Their only loss, I believe, was to Notre Dame. Is that correct? Yeah, their only loss to Notre Dame. It was a bad loss, but, it was Notre Dame. They beat Memphis 45-20. Paxton Lynch, 26 of 42, 305 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And just couldn't get the offense rolling in time. Navy runs the clock, obviously. They get it done. Chris Swain dominated for Navy. 18 carries, 108 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns for Chris Swain of Navy. And they just go all out. They dominated them. Keenan Reynolds had 85 passing yards, with 75 coming from a pass to Brandon Sanders, a 75-yard pass to lift him to take the lead 24-17. And ever since that, they kept the lead. Obviously driving away with a 45-20 victory. Good win by Navy. Maybe they get they get ranked. Hopefully. We'll see. I believe in the AP poll they ranked them 25 or so. So maybe Navy jumps in. Excuse me. Into the college football playoff. Excuse me. Allergies are coming back. Auburn defeated Texas A&M 26-10. Wait a minute. It's got the wrong pass. Hubnock went in for, if I could think of his name now, I can't even think of, Kyler Murray. God, see how quickly he just disappears in your head? Just like that. Kyler Murray disappears, had an off night. Trey Carson, one of my favorite running backs, 21 carries, 109 yards for Texas A&M. Speed and Oil, 4 receptions, 30 yards, a touchdown. Nothing going for A&M on the offense. Auburn defense does a good job. Jeremy Johnson showed what people thought he was going to be in the beginning of the year. 13 of 17, 132 yards, and a touchdown. Final score, 26-10. Auburn gets the victory over 19 A&M, which was a very high ranking for them to come back into the rankings. It was ridiculous. Utah defeats Washington. It was close about first half, and then Utah just kind of pulled away. 34-23 final score. Utah with the dub. Ohio State gets a late touchdown run by Cardale Jones to get the victory, 28-14. And the big game, LSU on the road to Alabama, and Alabama just dominated the game and did whatever they saw fit. And Leonard Fournette, 19 carries, 31 yards, and a touchdown. The guy who's going against, Derrick Henry, 38 carries, 210 yards, 3 touchdowns. I feel like they overused him a little bit, actually a lot, 38 carries, but 210 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just keep feeding him the ball. They just dominated all the way through. I'm mixing up teams here. Alabama never lost, was down or anything. They had to lead the entire game. They tied with 2 minutes left in the second quarter at 10, but they pulled away from there with a field goal and then the Derrick Henry 2 touchdown runs by him, left it 27-10. Then another field goal and then a Leonard Fournette run to make it a 16-30 ball game. Alabama moves up. I guarantee you they're number 2, just like that. And, granted, because LSU was number 2, but I wonder where LSU goes. I bet they just switch spots. How much you guys want to bet that LSU and Alabama switch spots? It's going to be Clemson number 1, Alabama number 2, number 3. Who was number 3? Baylor Ohio State, excuse me. And then it's going to be Bama and then Baylor and go from there. It's going to be crazy. That's it for college football. We still have the NFL to talk about. Only one news for the NFL, and it's major news if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and that is he's expected to be sidelined for a few weeks after suffering a mid-foot sprain Sunday in Steelers game against the Oakland Raiders. Roethlisberger, who suffered the injury on a sack by Aldon Smith, eventually left Hinesville to undergo further evaluation. The star quarterback also left the field on a cart in Week 3 with the sprained MCL, an injury that kept him out for 4 weeks. And Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown, who had a franchise record and balled out today, 17 catches, 284 yards, said Roethlisberger's injury was, quote, absolutely concerning. Ben is our franchise quarterback. We will live and die with him. Hopefully he can be with us. Now, whether he means to continue living with him or die, we don't really know. But Antonio Brown just went completely off, had a field day, and of course, the guy I'm going against on my fantasy team, guess who he had? Yep, Antonio freaking Brown. And I'm over here, and my team went off, but sadly, the guy I was going against, so did his. We'll look at it real quick, but Roethlisberger passed for 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception before being replaced by Landry Jones, who completed a 59-yard pass to Brown in the final minute to help set up Chris Boswell's game-winning field goal. The Steelers are 5-4 and play the Cleveland Browns at home next weekend, then get a bye in Week 11, a much-needed bye. Jones will likely be the Pittsburgh starter against Cleveland this week. But, yeah, so, my team went off. Man, it just hurts. I'm going to go through it real quick. Drew Brees, 31 points. Jeremy Hill did nothing for me. I'm about to cut him. He only gave me 5 points. Devontae Freeman, 13 points. Emmanuel Sanders, 15 points. Amari Cooper, 14 points. Ben Watson, 6 points. I actually this past week, I cut Delaney Walker for Ben Watson. Should have never made that. Walker almost had, I think, almost 20 points, if not 20. Michael Crabtree, 23 points. Kawan Alexander, the linebacker for Tampa Bay, 11 points. Landon Collins, 6 points. Rams defense, 6 points. The kicker for New England, Goski, I can't say his name right now, my allergies, 9 points. Overall, 139 points for me. The guy I'm going against, Tom Brady, 18 points. Chris Ivory, 16 points. Giovanni Bernard, 8 points. We both screwed up with the Cincinnati running backs. Des Bryant, 16 points. Antonio Brown, 30 points. Tyler Eifert, he even had him with the 3 touchdown catches for Eifert, 23 points. Brandon Marshall, 10 points. Navarro Bowman, 12 points. Lawrence Timmons, 6 points. Patriots defense, 12 points. And Walsh, the kicker for Minnesota, 8 points. Final, 159 points. I could have had a W. I'm now going to be on a 2-game losing streak after starting off 5-1. It just sucks, guys. It sucks. I was leading. All right, let's recap some games, and we're going to have to wrap up the show. These allergies are... they love to get right. I'm fine the whole morning. I try to talk. I have to talk to myself. My dad's at work. I talk to myself, and just trying to just talk, just trying to warm up the voice, try to get everything ready. I go over my show, and I'm completely fine. I start doing my show, and bam, just attack. All right. Again, tonight we have the worst Monday Night Football game of all time. Might actually be a shootout, so it might be the best, but just the worst teams. We got the 2-5 Chicago Bears on the road in San Diego, who are 2-6. San Diego, a 4.5-point favorite. This game will be on at 7:30 Central Time, ESPN. I'm only watching it because I'm a Chargers fan, and there's only football on tonight. So let's go through. Eagles get the victory as the Cowboys slide to 6 straight losses. Final in overtime, 33-27. Sam Bradford, 25 of 36. 295 yards, 1 touchdown. DeMarco Murray, 18 carries, 83 yards, a touchdown. Jordan Matthews, 9 receptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown. Cole Beasley decided to return and actually play this time. 9 receptions, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. Darren McFadden, 117 yards. And Matt Castle actually played well, other than the interception. 25 of 38, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick 6 that he threw. You take away that pick 6, this game doesn't go overtime, and the Cowboys win it. Obviously, the Cowboys have to make other stops in the game, but, man, I feel bad for the Cowboys. I mean, they really did their job offensively. I mean, you can't really do too much. You got a 100-yard rusher. You got a 100-yard receiver. Castle, almost 300 yards, 1 yard shy of it. He throws a pick 6. That's what really decides the game. It was late in the game in the fourth quarter. And just traded field goals after that. You got to put touchdowns on the board. Eagles get the victory, 33-27. The Packers climb up, and it seems the game was close, but it really wasn't. Panthers get the victory, 37-29. I mean, they dominated. Defense led a few touchdowns late in the game that really shouldn't have happened. It was a 27-7 game entering the third quarter. Then Randall Cobb goes off, 53-yard catch from Aaron Rodgers, makes it 27-14. Get a field goal, 30, and then another touchdown to Devin Funchess, who finally returns to actually play football, 37-14. And then the final 2 touchdowns to James Starks and Richard Rodgers to make it a 29-37. You close it out to make it 37-14. The defense steps up in the last, fourth quarter. You do a good job, and while you're not playing for style points like in college football, it makes it look a lot cleaner, a lot better for the Panthers if they could just get a victory of 37-14 other than a 37-29 victory. But overall, a win is a win. Panthers 8-0. Packers drop down now to, I believe, 6-2. The Patriots do its thing. They beat Washington 27-10. Tom Brady, 26 of 39, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. LeGarrette Blount, 29 carries, 129 yards, and a touchdown. As the final score, 27-10. Patriots get the W. Titans beat the Saints in overtime, 34-28. Marcus Mariota, 28 of 39, 371 yards, 4 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns should actually have been intercepted for the Saints, and maybe this game's a little bit different. But it was tipped up by 2 defenders of the Saints and then fell right into the hands of Delaney Walker, who goes 61 yards for the touchdown. Drew Brees, 387 yards, 3 touchdowns, a pick. Mark Ingram doesn't really make any effect. 22 carries, 54 yards. And Titans improved to 2-6. New Orleans drops to 4-5. And we'll just have to see what happens now. Saints really needed this to try to stay alive for a second half, hope. Excuse me. Because you got, obviously, Carolina in your division. Now, 4-5, it just seems like it's going to be too much. Titans, believe it or not, are still somewhat in it. The Colts are, let's see, we'll talk about the Colts, I guess, next now. Since they beat the Broncos 27-24, the Colts are 4-5. You're 2-6 for the Titans. A couple things happened. I mean, the Colts, who knew this was going to happen? You're not that far away, along with Jacksonville and Houston as well. But let's talk about the Colts and Broncos game. Broncos, or Peyton Manning, 3 yards shy of getting the record. He was 21 of 36, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. They didn't run the ball really at all. 7 carries, 34 yards for C.J. Anderson. Owen Daniels, 6 receptions, 102 yards, and a touchdown. It's like, okay, well, you had a tight end there. Why did you trade for Vernon Davis now? Andrew Luck and his offensive line actually plays like they were supposed to play all year. Andrew Luck, 21 of 36, 252 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Frank Gore has 83 yards and a touchdown. T.Y. Hilton, 5 receptions, 182 yards. I mean, they did a really good job controlling this game. They started off to a 17-0 lead before letting the Broncos come back to tie it. Then Ahmad Bradshaw rushes in for 8 yards, make it 24-17. Owen Daniels catches a 1-yard pass, tied at 24, and finally 27-24. And actually, you know, they were on the verge of just continuing to score all the way. They went all the way downfield. They were about to kick a field goal. And then I don't understand how the Broncos, you got a holding penalty on a field goal that you're trying to block. How are you holding? Why are you holding? That gives them a first down. It doesn't matter. Game is over, and Colts win it just like that. Let's see. Let's go back up. The Dolphins lose to the Bills 33-17. Tyrod Taylor, 11 of 12, 181 yards and a touchdown. LaShawn McCoy, 16 carries, 112 yards and a touchdown. But, of course, he can't have a good game without getting injured, and that's exactly what happens. He gets injured, and then Carlos Williams steps in with 109 rushing yards as well, so not bad at all. Sammy Watkins, 8 receptions, 168 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill did all he could just without throwing touchdowns. 27 of 36, 309 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Lamar Miller, 12 carries, 44 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also was the leading receiver with 7 receptions and 97 yards. But, you know, the Dolphins started the way you kind of thought they would. A fumble that goes out of bounds in the end zone for a safety to start off the game. And then LaShawn McCoy just goes off. A 48-yard run that was just absolutely crazy. And to make it 9-0, and then obviously improve to 33-17. Oh, for the records though, Miami drops to 3-5. Buffalo goes to 4-4. The Rams lose to the Vikings in overtime, and a questionable hit from LaMarcus Joyner, the safety or cornerback from the Rams, hits Teddy Bridgewater very viciously, not a football type of hit, and knocks him out of the game. A lot of talk again, you know, what's going to happen there. The NFL is reviewing it as we speak, as the show is being recorded. They are reviewing the play and seeing whether LaMarcus Joyner will, A, how much he's going to get fined, because he's going to get fined, and B, if he misses any game time, whether a suspension is handed down. Nick Foles, 18 of 33, 168 yards, and no touchdowns, no picks. Bridgewater, 144 yards and an interception. But the matchup we all wanted to see was Todd Gurley versus Adrian Peterson. Both against great defenses. Minnesota had the better one of the game. Todd Gurley, 24 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Adrian Peterson, 5 more carries than Gurley with 29, 125 yards, and a touchdown. Excuse me. Peterson did his thing. Gurley, I mean, he still had a great game. You can't knock him for anything like that. Minnesota improves to 6-2, which helps them tie now with the Green Bay Packers. After looking like it was, you know, they were going to be the 2nd or 3rd overall, they're now tied for first place with the 21-18 victory in overtime against the Rams. Rams dropped to 4-4. Jaguars lose to the Jets 28-23. Steelers beat the Raiders, and what a great game this really was. Derek Carr, 301 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Michael Crabtree, 7 receptions, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. Big Ben, we talked about him, with 334 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. D'Angelo Williams did a good job filling in for Le'Veon Bell, 27 carries, 170 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Antonio Brown, Obviously, franchise record in 17 catches for 284 yards. He did fumble, but overall, really good job for him and what he did for the Steelers. Steelers improve now to 5-4 as Oakland drops to 4-4. Giants beat the Buccaneers 32-18. And how about this? The shock of the week. The 49ers beat the Atlanta Falcons. How? What's going on? The Falcons were one of the top teams in the NFL just a few weeks ago. And now they just lost to one of the worst teams in the NFL. But are they? Blaine Gabbert steps in after the benching of Colin Kaepernick. He goes 15 of 25, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The interceptions came late in the game. Matt Ryan, 30 of 45, 303 yards, and a touchdown. Devontae Freeman, 12 carries, 12 yards. Not joking. Sean Drawn, who was recently picked up for the 49ers, 16 carries, 58 yards for him. Julio Jones, 10 carries, 137 yards. Atlanta drops to 6-3. San Francisco improves to 3-6. Unbelievable. Blaine Gabbert. Wow. And that is it for the games. Again, Bears at the Chargers tonight. The worst game of football this week. I don't know what to say about my Chargers. I basically given up on the year. I really have. I don't know. I guess we have to draft defensive players like all over the place. It's bad. Our defense is garbage. Offensively, we need an offensive line. Oh, man. I don't know. I'm still rooting for the LA possibility. We'll just have to see. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. We're on iTunes, Spreaker.com, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio. We're just about everywhere. Probably on SoundCloud. I don't even know. We are everywhere. Be sure to download the podcast and past podcasts. Listen to those as we recap and preview games each and every Monday and Friday morning. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry with the allergies. Hopefully, I am done by Friday. Trust me, this sucks going through. But we'll just have to see. Again, thank you guys so much for the support. Love you all. And I will see you guys this Friday morning. We might do a show Wednesday morning. Talk about the rankings. A quick show. I will tweet it out. Again, follow me on Twitter at @short_sports 24/7. All links are down below in case you don't know where to go. Just click on them and they'll take you to a magical place. I will see you guys Friday morning for sure. As always, God first, God bless, and I'm out. Peace.